Hi, this is JoAnna Brandi, and welcome to Living on the Growing Edge. It's a crazy, changing, evolving, and expanding world. So, staying ahead today means more than just keeping up, it means exploring the frontiers of thought, innovation, ideation. In this long form video series, I bring you face to face with visionaries, disruptors, thinkers who are shaping tomorrow's workplaces and worlds by living out on the growing edge. They're reframing, reimagining, and re envisioning. And as I learned from my first guest, reinventing. So I'm happy you're here. Enjoy the series. You can always leave comments below and be sure to subscribe while you're here. Good morning. Good morning. This is JoAnna Brandi, and I am here today on the Growing Edge with Bill Doerr. Now, Bill and I have known each other for a long time. We happen to be in a I shouldn't say that, right? We happened to be in a conversation just last week when we were talking about our favorite topic, which is marketing and customers. And we were talking about the fact that it's interesting how with all the social media and all that's going on, we're coming back around to understand that it's all about relationships. And Bill is a relationship guy. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then he'll fill in the rest as we're talking. Bill has been certified as a duct tape marketing consultant. He's a facilitator of the Get Clients Now business coaching program. He is a genius when it comes to creating systems. He's created the expert directory, the client machine, and that helps his clients get new clients and build those relationships. He's been the sales and marketing editor at the National Networker. He is a prolific writer. Actually, at one point, I can remember asking you to write my newsletter for me because you were way more prolific than I was. And back then, I was struggling a bit trying to get those words out, and they were so much fun. He's worked practically all over the world. He's a pilot. He does that for fun. It's one of those things that make him happy. And I just want to let him tell you about it. He's just written a book. He's finally put this all together in a book, and it's called Referral Prospecting, right?
It's actually how to, get more introductions and fill your pipeline using the referral prospecting system.
Okay, there we go.
There you go. So
you I like those really long titles.
There you go. Cheap plug. Cheap plug, right?
See it. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There so you much go. For the
there you go. Right there. More introduction, better clients. It's a beautiful book.
Real book.
It's a real book. Oh, I love that. I love real books. Love real books. So Bill, let's get the conversation going about how you teach your clients to get more clients using a system.
Well, yeah, and as you know, and we have a mutual friend in Dave Jennings, who's the CEO of Systemology down in Melbourne, not Florida, but Australia, as I found out the hard way. When I called him up, I was introduced to him by a guy, referrals, right? Preferred introductions from a friend of ours, a mutual friend up in Toronto, who said, you got to meet my friend Dave. And I saw Melbourne, and I said, oh, I know where Melbourne is. I've been familiar with Jupiter and the East Coast. He goes, I don't know, mate. We're down here in Australia. I'm like, no, check your data, Bill. So anyway, that was how we met. But Dave does systems like nobody does systems. And I was privileged to be able to work with him for a number of years and still do occasional stints here and there on different projects. And he taught me how to break important tasks down into a series of steps that have a reliably predictable result. And if you define that to be a system, then I've created a system for helping people get in front of and have more valuable conversations with more qualified individuals than they might be now. And that leads to them having more opportunities to go to the bank more often with a little more money.
Well, I've always seen you as a systems person. Because
really? That's interesting.
Yeah, well, because you always seem to have a step-by-step way to do something. I spend so much time on the right side of my brain that there's a lot of bubbles floating out there. And every time I have a conversation with you, what you've been able to do is take the bubbles and put them in an order that works, a systematic way of looking at And what I like about what you do is repeatable. That system is repeatable. Now, Bill sends me what he calls a preferral. I'm going to ask you to explain that. And every single time that he sends the preferral, I connect with that person, and it's always an amazing connection, an amazing connection. The only thing Bill hasn't done yet is found me a husband, because he's got this matchmaking skill. But oh no, I know you don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it.
I'm not that good. No. I wish I were for you. I really do.
Bill, I have to tell you, every one of the preferrals, and I'll give you a second in a minute. We'll talk about how to get there. In every one of the preferrals that you have sent me, everybody says exactly the same thing about you. That is your strength. Is matchmaking, is really understanding somebody's needs, somebody's skills, somebody's strengths, and then matching them up with somebody complementary. So why don't you walk us through how the preferral system works?
All right. Well, I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty details and go off the track too much, but basically what it is when you meet people, most people, and I shouldn't say most people, but I think a lot of people, especially newer people in business, try and say, hey, let me tell you all about my cool mate, and I'm the one who says, what I do is, I work with business people. Hey, forget about that. Tell me more about yourself. Tell me what you do. Who do you serve? What do you do? Why do they want you? What do they get when you do what you do and your magic spells get to work? And so I'm always out looking for who does what. And then in the course of meetings with people, you come across somebody who goes, oh, man, I'm so frustrated. I have been trying so hard to, and I go, ding, ding, ding. There's a little connection in the synapses upstairs goes, hey, I just met someone who I think does what you want to do. How about I introduce you? And the introduction is not a referral, because I'm not assuming that they need to do business. They may not be. Sometimes, as in the case of a mutual friend of ours that I introduced you to recently, there was no other need other than here's two cool people who ought to know one more cool person in their network, and see how that goes. And apparently it goes pretty well.
I think that's where your intuition comes in. I think when
it does. I've come to appreciate that. There is a point where you go, I can't say why. I'm just going to tell you, I think you two ought to know each other. And sometimes that's the best way to give an introduction to people. I'll tell people, I'm not going to tell you why I think you'd be of interest to one another, but why don't you get on the horn and say something like, hey, since Bill thinks we ought to know each other, how about I tell you, but he didn't say why. How about I tell you what I do? You tell me what you do, and let's see if we can figure it out together. And so it becomes a little detective chase novel thing going on, and they usually do figure it out, and they usually come up with some good answers. So, but this all goes back to, and I have a story in the book. I got all this really from my mom, who back in the 40s. What's that?
You've never told me that before. You got all this from
my mother. Well, my mom was in real estate for 42 years, and she started right after the war. And so, in fact, when she started, women real estate agents were the exception, not the norm.
I'm sure.
And Bob Barrows, who was head of the Hartford County Real Estate Board, said to her, Helen, why aren't you home having kids? Now, granted, this is a very different kind of a time, right? The late 1940s, right after the war. And she said, because I've got a 13-year-old, my brother, who likes to eat. And so, I have no choice but to go to work. It's the hell out of my way. And that's pretty much how she was. So anyways, one day I asked her, I said, Mom, how do you get your clients? And she goes, well, Billy, even when she was 91 down in Fort Lauderdale, it was still, oh, Billy, how are you? What are you going to do? Anyway, so she said, you know how we throw parties every week? Now, I lived in the Connecticut area, and beautiful old homes in New England. My mother had a penchant for getting into these kind of quasi McMansion type things. At least they seemed like that to me when I was a little kid. But she could throw a party for 50, 60 people, and nobody was bumping into each other or trying to, get by. So she would throw parties typically on a Friday or a Saturday night. and she'd have a bunch of people there. And she said, so you know how somebody comes in and I go, oh, everybody, JoAnna, Brandi's here. JoAnna's here. Come on. And then she grabbed you, said, no, put your coat down, and then she drags you over to somebody. And I said, yeah, I know how you do that. And then I say, JoAnna, this is Tom and Allison and Marguerite and, so forth. And yeah. And then I say, the bar's over there, the booze is there and the food is over here, or whichever way you want to go. And then she would just tell those people, you take good care of JoAnna and introduce her to some other people when you get through talking. I think I hear the doorbell, and then my mom would run and she would say, I'll catch up with you later. And so, yeah, I get that. And she says, so Monday, this is pre-computers and internet. She says, Monday I'm on the telephone. I go, yeah, that's typically what you do. She says, I'm calling the people who were at the party saying, did you meet everybody you wanted to meet? Is there anybody you didn't get to meet? Would you like me to try and set up a coffee date for us? I mean, I'll be, whatever. So my mom was like in the middle of everybody's business. And I think you might remember this name. Pearl Mesta was like the woman who did all the big parties in Washington for the embassies.
I know, but other people, yeah.
That was my mom, and she was throwing these big parties. So she said, whenever these people have a need to buy or sell a property, Mama pops out of their brain like candy from a Pez dispenser, Billy. So if you are providing value and connecting people, things take care of themselves. That's really where this all started. I just was able to couple it with computer technology as that came along. But the principles on which the best practices for building long-term, valuable and valued relationships came from my mother.
And I love that because, well, let me ask you first, what was the premise for the party? She just threw a party? Was it for an occasion? Did people know it was to get business? Or I just need a little bit more understanding.
It was Helen's throwing a party and we're going to go. That was it. And there was no, I mean, you knew if you came and, there were some regulars that would come every week.
That's amazing.
But there's always a little new blood to go after, if you know what I mean, to meet, to connect with and so on. But what happened was the basis was just let's get together and have a little debrief or decompression at the end of the week.
Yeah.
And it was always a nice thing to do. My mom wrote it off. She was good like that. She ran her own agency, but she was very good at helping people figure out what they needed. And then she said, when she would ask people, by the way, is there anything going on that isn't going the way you want? My mother would be the one to go, it was like the old game of concentration. Oh, I know this woman in Boca Raton, and she does the most amazing work with teams and, communications and team building and blah, blah, blah. In fact, do you remember there was a woman from Bahrain in the Middle East, Iman, who connected through some connections I have, who said, I'm looking for someone who can talk on the idea of customer service for the Saudi government. And you said, that's great, but you know what? People are getting beheaded over there. Yeah, no, I'm not going. But
yes, that's how you want to send me there. Yeah.
Well, no, I didn't want to say, I just wanted you to know each other. But here's the point. How would she have ever known of you if her network did not interconnect?
Right.
And so that's what we're doing. We're building these web of networks of connected relationships, people who know, love, and trust one another, and who feel that if I have a resource in my network that you need in yours, or you need, why would I not make the introduction? And so sometimes introductions are not because somebody needs a new client, but because they have a resource capability somebody else needs. But the bottom line is, as my mom said, when you introduce two people, you now have two people who love you. The person who suddenly found out that there's someone who needs them, and the other person who says, oh, thank God I don't have to put up with this, you know what, anymore, because JoAnna was kind enough to introduce me to her friend who's helping me with the solution. I think there was a guy named Bruce that you and I both know. And when you were first moving down to Florida and you were having little computer issues, Bruce, the man, the legend.
Does he calls himself the computer guy.
And he was the computer coach of Palm Beach County, I believe it was.
Oh, maybe he's the computer coach. I'm sorry, the computer coach.
Yeah. Well, he's had many identities, but nonetheless, and he's done all of them very well. But at that time, that's what he was. One of the things he was hanging his hat on. along with doing work at Mar-a-Lago, but that's a whole other story or for another time. But no, I mean, that's all it is it's trying to figure out who do I know who can be of service and help to you. And every time you make one of those connections, you're building up your value deposits so
No,
that you can call them in, or you can just, just people think of you. I mean, every time somebody thinks of you, at least in my circle,
yeah.
I think of Tom Perrone, I think of Janine Bolin, I think of other people go, oh my God,
All those people
isn't
you introduced me to.
isn't
Well,
she wonderful? Well, yeah, she is. Of course she is. But see, that's where you get this good, just like a spiral, like a tornado. It spirals up or it spirals down depending upon the pressure. Well, if it's, low pressure, it's pulling it up. Well, those connections pull everybody in the spin up
wow.
because you can't help but go along for the ride if you think about it, right? So it's kind of a barometric measure of how well you're doing by how well you're doing for other people.
I'm going to stop you for just a second because you said something there that I think was very profound. When we talk, yeah, you did. When
Okay.
we about the sales process, we typically talk about the fact that people, we have to find, we want people to know, like, and trust us. You use the word love. And I think that's very, very significant because I've been in the business of loyalty for 34 years. And one of the things I know about loyalty is that when they do scans of the human brain using a functional MRI machine, and they put a picture, let's say, of your puppy or your kitten or your kids or your favorite drink or what, when they put a picture in front of you, a certain region of the brain lights up in the midbrain when you're seeing a picture of someone you love. But if they substitute a picture of a brand you love, the same action happens in the brain. So when I talk about customers, I often talk about customer love because we want our customers to love us. It's nice if they like us, but when you said know, love, and trust, wow, that just takes it to another level.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. I mean, yeah, I think I remember one of the early studies on branding was, citing the number of people who have Harley Davidson tattooed on their bodies. I mean,
Exactly.
when you get to that level of love, commitment, you really, God help you if you're trying to break into that marketplace because it's going to be very, very difficult. I mean,
Exactly right.
that's going to be a big, big challenge. And I use love because, well, first of all, it's a little edgy, less so now than it was when I first started it. But
Yeah.
see, the thing about everybody thought like was you have to be liked. No, you don't have to be liked. In fact, I have some doctors that are not really very likable, but damn, they are really, really at the top of their game. So I
Yeah.
don't give a damn if you're not that likable. But
Yeah.
what it really, and then people thought, well, that means I have to be kind of nice and everybody has to love me. No, that's not what it means. It means you are a preferred provider relative to who else people think of as where could I go to get this problem solved? So it's not really about like. So I use awareness, preference, and then confidence that somebody can refer people to you and not have to do damage control, or confidence that the value proposition you tell them you can deliver, they have a very high expectation of reliability and predictability that they will in fact get it if they exchange their money with you for your services. So I use awareness, preference, and confidence only because I think they're more accurate terms. But know, like, and trust is still, a good term and everybody knows it. So we start from there, but we modify it as we go along. But I like love.
I do love the love word because that to me, when I see that word, I think about loyalty. I also think about another thing when I see that word. One of my teachers is Barbara Fredrickson. She wrote the book Positivity. She wrote the book The Positivity Ratio, and the third book was called Love 2.0. And she talks about love in terms of positivity. She talks about the fact that when we are completely present with one another as we are now, when we're completely present with one another, when we are out for the other's good, when we are holding the space for the other person to be as brilliant as they can possibly be, that's what love is. love isn't the mushy, she talks about the fact that we can have love in everyday interactions without being afraid of using that word. And I think you've done that very brilliantly. And I will say something about the people, especially since I've gotten to know Tom Perrone and Janine Boleyn and Carl Fix and Carl Messina, and
Michael.
they're lovable people. You know, they want to do good for one another. They want to help one another. And I don't know whether that's just a hallmark of the people you surround yourself with, and that could be that because you're such a giving person. But I could pick up the phone and call any one of those people right now and say, I need to talk for a half hour, or I need to talk for an hour. I need to run an idea past you. I need to. Now, I don't do business with any of those people, but they're part of that. Well, I don't really know which, maybe it's the Love Network. I don't know, but they're part of a group of people that I know are there for me, even though we're not in contact every day. So the relationships that you help build, and I think that's the other part of it, is you help people build those relationships, are pretty, at least in my case, pretty lasting relationships.
Yeah. Well, you've given me two things already here. Number one, every time I hear, the term love, that a part of my brain will now have that vision of a part of the midbrain lighting up. And
yes.
I really, and love network, I kind of like that actually. That's pretty good. And so thank you for that. Those are two little things I just observed.
Well,
I'm filing away.
There isn't one person that you have sent me a referral. If I don't even want to use the word refer now, that you have sent, you send me a referral. You sent me a few of them last week, actually. There isn't one person, and I call every one of them or connect with every one of them. There isn't one person that doesn't say something about, don't you love Bill Doerr? He's a great connector. He's done so much for me. But it's true. So whatever your magic is, the impact that you have on people, it's clear. I'm looking for the right words. It's clear that you're doing this to build community, to build relationships, and not because you're looking for money.
Well, we're doing that too, but yeah, first things first, right? Like what's that old thing about, can I pet your dog? Well, why don't you give him a treat first? It might go better for you. It's the same thing, yeah. But I appreciate where you're coming from on that. I'm thinking years ago when my mom was still alive, I made up a little, card for it or whatever, and I got inspired because she gave me the definition of love that I use, which is love is the unconditional regard for the growth of another or the betterment of another that manifests itself in action. Meaning, you can say, oh, I love Taylor Swift. Well, you might, but she'll probably never know that. She might say, well, look at that, our revenues are up, but she won't know that you felt that way. So when you have a personal connection and that connection produces meaningful, measurable, valuable results, that's the active love in action, which I personally try to do. So when I make a little introduction to people, that's kind of that is an act of love, because I love both parties, and I hope, you don't know, maybe it will, maybe it won't, some do, some don't, but you hope that something good will come from it. And sometimes it's not that immediate coupling, but they keep somebody else in mind now for a while, and then they say, hey, I ran into somebody because I met them through JoAnna, and I think you should talk to them. And boom, off you go. So you're just putting energy out there, and there's a reciprocity, and it is an expanding universe. So it doesn't hurt if you throw more energy in, but the more you throw in, the more you're going to have coming back too.
That is, I've known you a long time, but I've never heard the larger philosophy, which now I understand better.
Damn, we've missed all that time.
I understand better what you do, right? Now I understand that there's a different foundation. I thought you were just passionate about sales and marketing. And many people are just passionate about sales and marketing. But I'm hearing, and I think that's what drives you. I mean, you and I and people that have businesses like we do, we're driven by purpose. We're driven by the purpose to help another, the purpose to make a difference in the world, the purpose to, whatever our particular purpose is. I want to see more positivity on the planet. I want to see more positivity in businesses. I want, when somebody goes home from work at night, I want them to have enough energy left over for their children. And I think that's my driving force, because I didn't always have enough energy left over. In fact, sometimes I came home from work drained. So, which is why I teach about energy gains and energy drains. When that work environment is nourishing, when people are noticing what your strengths are and helping you work with your strengths, which does that's the best medicine in the world, is to be working with your strengths. And then you go home at the end of the day and you are proud. I'm really proud of myself today. I got this done. I got that done. As opposed to going home at the end of the day, being completely drained and having no energy left over for your family. And I think that's kind of what's happening now. I think you may know that recently I became certified as the Chief Wellbeing Officer. So I've been spending a little bit more time in the books, so to speak, just being aware of what that actually means in the business context. You know, yes, it means safety, but it doesn't just mean physical safety, it means psychological safety. And right now we're working with a populace. Yeah, we're working with people who don't feel safe at work. They don't. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not that they just have a bad boss. I mean, there are a lot of reasons for what's going on in the world and how people are reacting to it. But it means that leaders have to have a whole different set of skills, because if they can't manage their own nervous systems, they can't manage anybody else's. And that's a whole new way of thinking. So it really is, I think the philosophy that you espound is so important, because and we're dealing with a loneliness epidemic on top of everything.
Oh, yeah. Amen on that. I really feel that is happening at a rapidly increasing pace. And that is really sad. It
really is, because we there's the illusion. I'm going to try to turn my sound. Hang on for just a second.
Stand by for news.
Stand by for the news. No, stand by. There's a man outside my window with a leaf blower. Now I've got protection on my computer. So you can't hear.
I'm glad you had a leaf blower. Wasn't just standing outside your window. You know?
No. I live in a condo and they're constantly blowing. I don't know whatever happened to rakes, but this is all day long. Talk about nervous system. It's like having somebody all day long. You know.
Oh yes.
Anyway. I went all off track there. I want to focus on you, because your system is so amazing. Say a little bit more about how you step people. You have a system of understanding what the different functions are. And
okay.
I want you to tell me a little bit. You talk about a magic formula. There's a fueling function and a qualifying function and a cultivation function.
Yeah, well, those are just things that go into, building a clientele, whatever practice or business you happen to be in, especially. And I don't work with people who are doing brick and mortar retail. That's not where I focus. I focus on people who are probably sitting on a Zoom call and talking to some prospective or client who's 5 states away, and they never see each other except on the screen. So it's really about people who are providing a service with their expertise, solving problems, and connecting to people through people who know, love, and trust them. So that's really what goes into it. But the mechanism behind it, if you think about it, is really and I call it the 5 functions. Fueling, which is how do you get the raw materials that you can process, and that's prospecting, for want of a better term. It's also getting referrals, and I recommend you augment obviously that, but get some manageable amount of activities that your bandwidth allows you and your budget allows you to support to generate the top of the funnel people, and then process those people. And then the second thing I always suggest is qualification. I think that if you are going to invest your time, money, and energy and love on someone, they should probably have a good chance of either doing business with you or referring you to people who could. And other than that, your Aunt Sophie may make the best, jam at the state fair, but if she can't refer you or buy from you, she's a wonderful, intrinsically good human being, but don't waste the precious dollars that you have and energies and time on her trying to hope that something good will happen that will help you go to the bank a little more often, a lot more money. That's probably not the best place for ROI, basically, right? So that's the qualification, those two terms, buying and referring. And then you've got cultivating, which is, since most people who you meet, I always say, I like to meet people by introduction, not crisis. But that also means that because they don't have a crisis, their house is not on fire and I'm not a fireman pulling up the truck, you got to say, hey, how do I manage to stay in your mind without getting in your face? So you have to cultivate awareness and stay top of mind with those people until such time as they do become in need or know of someone in their network who may need what you do. And then you get that call going, hi, you don't know me, but I was talking with JoAnna the other day, and she said to me, I should call you and ask to talk with you for a little bit. You have a few minutes. That's what starts to happen. So, but if you don't stay in touch and top of mind, you lose it. In fact, cheap plug here. Oh gosh, can you see it? How to stay top of mind with key people for your practice or business, prospects, clients. What the heck is wrong with this camera? I'll tell you. Don't get a Brio. Brio really, they turn bad on you. They do. But those are the kinds of things that outline how do you build a keep in touch system that a solopreneur can manage to maintain. Because if you don't maintain it, don't even bother starting, right? It's like in the old days, advertising. If you can only do one ad, unless you're Apple, you're probably better to hold on to your money and wait for a better opportunity. But that's cultivation. Decision making, selling, whatever you want to call it, is helping somebody make a decision about your services when the time comes that they need to decide, should I do something with you or not? And then the last thing is service, which is, I always tell people, if you do nothing else, call people that you want to build a relationship with once a quarter and just say, hi, Bill here, how you doing? No, seriously, how you doing? You doing okay? Everything going right? Is there anything that's not going the way you want? And may I or someone I know be of service to you to help you get that moving?
Wow.
If you did that, again, that's not about me. That's all about them. That's not the kind of call they get. But because they go, oh yeah, it's JoAnna again. She's calling. Oh, and she's not trying to tell me about her new, JoAnna in the box program or something. She's saying, hey, Bill, how you doing? Or in your case, you'd say, hey, hon, how you doing? You doing okay? Really? Seriously? Come on, tell me the truth. And somebody says, wow, that's somebody who really expresses in action that unconditional regard for my betterment or growth. I'm going to go, wow, this, all things being equal, if I need what you do, or I hear of somebody who does, guess who's going to get the call? You are. And that's so if you did nothing else, that alone, and you just do it so that each month you have people who are coming up for the next quarterly call. So like you got, January, then you got March, April, and then July, and then, October, and so on. And each month, depending upon when somebody starts with you, they're going to come up every month. And then you're calling old friends, warm fuzzies. You're not making cold calls, and you're doing good. And by the way, you can only push out so much good before a good cart comes back to you, right?
I'm okay that I break that rule a little bit. Sometimes when I'm calling, I think what's happening right now is that people don't return their phone calls. So you're left with the recorder. You're left with leaving a message. Yeah. And I sometimes want to jump over the warm and fuzzy. And I'm as warm and fuzzy as they get, but I want to jump over that and say, hey, I got this new research program. I really want to let you know about it. Instead of.
That's fine. But okay. But you can do both, because the quarterly call is not about selling anything other than the continuation of the relationship. So it's got to be, what's in it for me? Well, that other person is trying to figure out what's in it for me. Well, unconditional regard for my betterment is what's in it for me. And you're expressing it by making that call. Even if you call and say, hi, JoAnna, Bill here. Listen, I'm sorry I missed you. I was just thinking of you, and I wanted to give you a quick call, see how you're doing. If there's anything I or anyone in my network of experts can do to help you with a project or with a client's project, give me a call. Always happy to be of service. Love you, dear. Talk to you in a couple of months. Bye. I'm
going to have to write that one down.
How long does that take?
There's there's a real estate broker here in town. Now I know a lot of real estate brokers. This guy,
Everybody knows them. Yes.
now, this guy though, many years ago, used to be my computer consultant before he and his wife went into the real estate business. That's how I met him. I met him through a friend. He was my computer consultant. That's exactly what he does. I get a call from Matthew probably 3 times a year. And he doesn't, he doesn't say, "Are you buying a house?" Or we talk. And of course, you become friends after that period of time. He does something that is really magical. His name is Matt Swanson, that I think is great. He has, and now I don't know how big his list is. I don't know how manageable it is. But at Thanksgiving, you get an email and a call where he's asking, "Do you want pumpkin or apple?" And he goes and buys pies this big from Costco. Huge, delicious, amazing pies. He sets up a tent in the parking lot of where his office is, and he gets a little schedule. I'll be there. Yep, that's what he does all day long. I have met the coolest people by hanging out at his tent.
Yep.
Last year, I felt that, well, I haven't spent any time with Matthew, and his wife wasn't there. There was no one there with him. I was lonely being out in the tent waiting for people to come by. So I hung out with him, and I just kept meeting people. It was really amazing. It was really amazing. So he's one person I know that does a very, very good job of that. I think we all need to do a little bit more of that. And I agree. I'm tardy when it comes to my follow. I mean, you know me. I'm tardy when it comes to my follow up, and I paid for that. I pay for that by not. Today, you really have to be top of mind.
Yeah, and if you're not, you run the risk of somebody. "Hey, does anybody know somebody who can do a job of blah blah?" And before you realize it, all that work you put in earlier is now gone.
Well, that's it.
The payoff only comes later. Yeah.
Right now everything is instant. I think that's made business a little harder. I never had to worry about my social media presence, or I did exactly. And you know me, I love postcards. So I meet somebody. I met 2 people at a car dealership a few weeks ago, and would like to do some work with them. And so the minute I got back home, I got 2 of my favorite postcards, and I mailed them postcards. And then I've called them. I haven't been able to reconnect. So right here on my desk, I've got a couple of postcards and their business cards, and those will go out to. And the fact that they're local is great, because I just think it's going to have a different impression. And that's one of the ways I like to communicate. The postcards are pretty. They
Are these the photos that your daughter did?
Yeah. I made years ago. I did a postcard line.
And do I still recall them? And do I still have them? And that little pouch you sent out so I could keep them.
Yeah.
JoAnna, you do a lot of these things. You may not think you do, but you do. So yeah, and that's why you have these long-term relationships. People appreciate that.
I actually built my business that way. Quick story. When I I worked for a large corporation, and eventually burnout. You get to the point where you just go, "I gotta get out of here." So I started my own business, and because I did so well in the corporate world, I made the assumption I was going to do really well here. Well, that's not true, because positioning is done in the mind of the customer. So in the mind of the customer, I used to do something else. What the hell are you doing over here? So it really took a long time. So I lived on Long Island at the time, and I started doing the networking things we do. You go back then, I would go to the quality meetings. I would go to all different kinds of meetings and come home, back with names of people. And after a while, I sort of isolated 35 people that I would like to work with. And what I did, now this is long before I ever printed a postcard, but what I did, because I traveled a lot, I was doing work for Inc. magazine at the time, so I was on the road a lot. What I would do is carry with me labels with their addresses on them and postcard stamps. And as soon as I got somewhere, I'd go down to the gift store and buy 35 postcards and would write a postcard. And usually the postcard said, "I'm at the conference, I'm at the customer service conference, I'm at the quality conference. I can't wait to tell you about what I've learned here for your business." And I did this until I had a customer base. because it's personal. And I think that's what the conversation we got into the other day. How can we be a little bit more personal in this age of social media? And you actually have a mechanism for it. You have a system for it. You have a director. You have a whole, you've got the structure for this already set up.
Yeah, well, and systems, I mean, you and I come from the same place. We're very creative, but my God, we'll leave a mess behind. Well, for me, I'm speaking for myself now.
Well,
If I didn't have that intuition to use a system, I
right,
mean, it'd be chaos. It really would be,
right,
So you have to either get a system or get a virtual assistant who is extremely organized and
yeah,
who will take the mission and fulfill it for you so you can go do what you do best, which is
exactly.
probably not administrative things, right? Yeah.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. That's right. So you want to talk a little bit about what is the expert directory? Because I'm curious about, I know that's a thing you talk about all the time. What is the expert directory? And if somebody wanted to become part of it, what do they do?
Well, at the moment, we're not taking anybody on in that area, but let me just real quickly what it is if you think of your must-know go-to experts in a field, like you're one of mine, okay?
Yeah.
You have a record, you have a nice little picture and contact information, but somebody can only if they typed in customer care or some term that you have in your profile, it
Mhm.
will point you out. But the only people who get into it are other people who have a directory. So I have a directory. I'm connected to others who do. And so if one of their clients in
Okay.
Encinitas, California
Okay.
says, hey, Charlene, I need some help with, Charlene could go in and type in customer care, marketing, team building, whatever she wanted to put in. And it would then come back and within 2 degrees of separation, it would also come back and say, you don't have anybody. We've searched your directory. You have nobody with those keywords.
Okay. All
But
right.
Bob Harrison in Chicago has someone in his directory named Bill Doerr who does. So
Okay.
we only go 2 connections away because we don't want to dilute and pollute the potency of the relationship.
Wow.
But that gives Charlene a chance to call her friend in Chicago and say, I got a client who needs somebody that this guy who's in your directory, Bill Doerr, has, and it fits all the right profiles. Tell me about Bill, and is he somebody that you trust? And of course, he's a little hard pressed because he goes, well, I've got him in my directory, so obviously I trust him. And
I
then
got
she
it.
can say, would you give me a referral to Bill so I can ask him about this lady in Boca Raton? That's all she knows. She doesn't have email. She doesn't have phone numbers. It's only the gatekeepers can reveal you to others, but it allows people who you would never otherwise know about find you when they would never otherwise know about you either. And with the potency of the bond of the know, love, and trust of the immediate connectors,
Wow.
it's like, who's this JoAnna Brandi? Well, Bill Doerr says she's cool people. Done. All right, as long as Bill's on board, I'm fine with it. That's where you're leveraging that relationship quality. Otherwise, you might as well just say, hi, this is a cold call. You okay with that? Because
Yeah.
that's all you got. You got nothing else. You got to try and build it from
Right.
scratch. Whereas I'm putting you at the penthouse saying, isn't the view nice? Well, it's my friend's penthouse, but you can stay here. They're out of town for a couple of months. Enjoy the weekend in New York.
Wow.
So that's how that one works.
So you're
And we
about
we do look for people, and we're doing a little reworking of it. So it's
okay.
coming back, but for right now, we're not looking for new users of it. And then
Yep.
the other tool we have is the client machine, which we are looking actively for
Okay.
people, and that's a done for you drip marketing communication that keeps in touch and top of mind with your key
I remember
people.
that one. Yeah.
And you get 5 links every week to cool, interesting, or useful content. And it's not promotional, but it is branded. Your photograph, your
Right.
contact information, this courtesy of, and this is where you're getting it from. And we do all the dirty work. All you have to do is invite people to stay in touch and top of mind with you. And once they accept the invitation, they've opted in. We do the fulfillment to them every week, and we give you a dashboard showing you who clicked on what they were interested in, That may or may not be of interest to you, but the point is every week you're reminding them, reminding. And so that's what it does. You couple that with that quarterly call. Now you got two pieces of a cultivation system. There's a couple of others in there too, but it's not really hard to be able to do it if you build it by design instead of accident.
Wow. Now the touches these days, they're not, they're all email, or are you using text, or are you using snail mail, or?
You can use any medium you like. We do the email with the drip for the weekly drips, the Monday memos. That's what they're called, and they go out on your behalf. The quarterly calls, you're going to use your phone number and
Right.
phone
Great,
and
great.
use that. You can probably use email, or you can do the handwritten note cards. Although I'm finding the smarter people are using the note cards and the lazier people are not. I'm sorry to put it that way, but the good news is
Work.
as
It's work to sit down with those cards. I got to tell you.
it is. But look what it did for you. It launched your business.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
if you want to relaunch your business, maybe it makes sense to investigate that again. It's not, I mean, you can write big letters. Hey, how you doing? Thinking of you. Best, Bill. Boom. Next. And just get them out. Just get them out. If you sent 3 of those a day, that's 60 a month.
Yeah.
That's an awful lot of people you're touching with a little reminder that, hey, I was thinking of you. And then they get an email from you, a thinking of you email, which is, I got a friend of mine who moved down to Florida. I know, wonderful state. Everybody's moving to. What the hell am I doing in Connecticut right now? Anyway, paying more taxes. That's what I'm doing. Anyway, I found out one of his new hobbies is bone fishing. So, I go and I do a quick search on Google, and I get something from Modern Angler, bone fishing in the Florida Keys. And I just grabbed the link and I said, hey, Vin, thinking of you, thought you might enjoy this. Here's the link. Bill, that's all I had to do. That's a thinking of you email. So now the medium is email, but the personalization is, I didn't send him something about, knitting circles in Iowa. I sent him something about bone fishing, which is in his world very important. And is it about my business or my services? No, but is it about our relationship? You damn well bet it is.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's why those little things begin to accumulate, kind of like plaque in the brain or God knows where, and they add up over time.
I wouldn't use that analogy.
Well, what the hell? I'm closer to it than you are. So what the hell?
I don't think so. But here's what I call it. I call it the emotional bank account.
Mm-hmm.
It's an emotional bank account. And when you put in more on the positive side than the negative, whether it's you're talking about your employees or you're talking about your customers or you're talking about your friends, when you put in more on the positive side, it makes people feel. When people think about you, they feel, but there's this, it's the emotional thing. We need to build those emotional bank accounts. One of the most disappointing things that I have found, I think that I work with Vistage, which is the world's largest CEO organization. And I go and I do my thing, and you're not allowed to sell. But I say, I've got a great newsletter. I've got lots of information I'd love to send you. Just leave me your business card.
Yeah, you can't be a jerk, but they know you're not there for your health, right?
But you know what? Very few people have an address on a business card now. I still carry those postcards.
That's true.
I carry the postcards. I carry the postcard stamps in my briefcase because I want to send that potential client, that person, a postcard from their city. So I'll do my best to go back up to that hotel room if I can, write out those cards and drop them off at the front desk and say, here, get these to the post office for me. That's been my practice all along. But now if I come home with 3 addresses, it's a lot. So the whole concept that we had back in the old days of direct marketing, which was, send a lumpy package, do something, but you don't know where they're working now. You don't know if they're working from home, where it's actually gotten a little harder to build relationships in that way.
Well, yes, but here's the thing. When in the old days you were doing a blast, right? You had this list. Well, now you have a curated, cultivated list. If you're going to send something to someone, you should dang well know where the hell they are. And if you don't, maybe they're not really that well developed for you yet. And there's nothing wrong with calling up or having a VA. I've got a lady in Atlanta who loves to do this. She'll call any group of people you got with, pull them off of a Lineable or LinkedIn or whatever. She calls them up and says, I'm calling from JoAnna's office. She wants to know where we could send a little gift to you and what's your preferred mailing address. And then she puts it in. Boom, done. Now you've got it at least if you wanted to send something. And you can send a little, 1-page sheet on something, with do's and don'ts or whatever. So you can fulfill what was the predication of the call, but now you've got that information. And you really don't want 1,000 people on there. I always say, if you've got a couple hundred, that's about all you can handle, because they're going to keep coming back. Even if you do the quarterly, I forget how to break the numbers down, but I mean, basically, there's a percentage of the people who are going to come up every month, because you've got some people coming up for their first quarterly call in this, let's say, the month of August, the second quarterly call, the third quarterly call, and the fourth quarterly call in August. When you think about it, that's about a third of your database. So how many calls can you really make purely to keep in touch and still run your business? You can't do what mass marketing used to be. This is personalized relationship marketing. But if you're cultivating relationships with the right people, it's going to pay off. And in some ways, it's kind of come full circle. We don't have unlimited resources. We can't, work the world. So we have to work the select audience of people who know, love, and trust us, or are getting to know, love, and trust us, so that we can end up being of service and value to one another.
Wow. I love the way you think. I know a long history in the insurance business, don't you? Where you were in the sales business, you were in the insurance business.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a young friend who just went into the insurance business, and I'm trying to coach him along a little bit. And I know you're going to send him a copy of your book.
As soon as I get his address.
I sent you his address, but I'll send it again. I probably texted it to you.
Drop it in the chat afterwards, and we'll make sure it goes out today.
Yeah, but what words would you have for someone young, just starting out? What are the top 3 things that they need to think about and do to build a practice? That's a practice to build. Mm-hmm. Well, even in my case, I have a consulting. It's a practice. It's a group of people. It's a practice. But what advice would you to kids that are just, all they know is social media, and so they're on Instagram, but
yeah, I might actually throw in a fourth one. First of all, and honestly, there are some really amazing young generation people who are just coming out into the business world now, who, unlike many of their peers, maybe even most, are very open to engaging hand to hand, so to speak, with the marketplace. And they're the ones who are going to be the market leaders in anything they do as time goes on. But in general, I would say one of the first things that I would try to do is to be extremely clear about who do I really want to connect? Who can I really be of some value to? Because, I have a term, paint like Rembrandt, meaning make it so beautiful that nobody can miss what you're trying to communicate. If you say, well, I work with business people. Oh my gosh, I love you, dear, but that's not you. But I'd say that to somebody, I say, it's not helping me. I mean, I know all kinds of business people. If you said, do I know one-eyed Greek ophthalmologists in New York City, I could actually tell you there's 3 people I know who fit what you just said, because you helped me focus. It's like twisting the microscope down into fine focus, and all the network contacts I have, I went, oh yeah, I got 3 people like that. So being specific about who you want to connect with, who is most likely to understand, value, desire, and afford your kind of services, would be the first thing that I'd recommend you do and get a good handle on. Second thing is, I would try to look at who could I work with, whose circles of influence include people that I would like to include in mine. So, that's like going out to a good source or a good partner. And a partner is somebody who's in business also in a non-competitive field, offering non-conflicting services, and you can cross-promote much more easily because they understand the value of referrals and whatever else comes in the door, just as you do. But now you've got people who you're not going to be in conflict with, and you can say, hey, let's go knock off some garbage cans together, right? So that's the second thing. So you've got your ideal client profile, you've got your sources, and then you got to work on your methodologies, some of which we touched on here. Having a system to cultivate your contacts, critical. Right. And then last is build a plan to get from where you are to where you want to be, and machinate all the steps in between. That's where systems come in, that if taken consistently and conscientiously will move your token on the board of life into the end zone that you want for the rest of it. And that would be a good thing for most younger people to keep in mind, those 4 things. Who do I really want to approach? Who can really help me? How do I make it happen? And what kind of a plan? Not a goal, because most people confuse that. Planning is a process. Goals are things that you want to achieve. If you can put that all together, you're going to be far ahead of the game before your friends even figure out what the hell happened.
I'll make sure he gets a copy of this, and I'll make sure that we pull out a piece of that perhaps we could put in LinkedIn or something to give people that advice.
Cool.
We're approaching an hour here, and I know that's a lot to ask of anybody to talk for an hour. Any final thoughts about business today, business relationships today? Any final closing thoughts that you have that you can leave here with our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, I think that, like every fad, and I don't mean this should be a fad by any means, but it seems to be increasingly popular to talk about the relationship economy versus the transactional economies. And, hey, listen, it worked for a long time, but at some point, you really want to get the relationship in place, because relationships can sprout a lot of transactions, but a lot of transactions don't really give you leverage like we've been talking about, preference, differentiation, all those other good things that we want for our business, or how to stand out to people, because that's only going to come from building a relationship. And so if you put other people first, and you're close behind, by the way, on the route to the bank, I'll drive, you sit in the back, but we're going to the bank, right? You get a system that you can work and maintain, critical. Right. Too many good ideas get dropped because they're just overwhelming.
Well, and you've known well enough to know that that's my MO. I've got a million good ideas, but that is the maintenance. So
it's keep it simple, outsource as much as you possibly can. And and just remember, we're only here but for the grace of God, and the opportunities to be of service is up to each of us to rise to the occasion on. And I try to do it, you try to do it, our friends try to do it. And I think a lot of people are increasingly getting wind of, you know what, we're only here for a certain number of days. Why don't we make the most of it and have a party? I always say, I'll be a party to the party, because to me, life is a party, just like my mom used to throw parties. And I'm here to be the host with the most.
I just asked, and this is something, and this is why these things I'm doing, these interviews I'm doing, are so much fun. But I'm doing them with people I've just met, but I've also doing with the people I've known for a long time. I have known you for a long time, and I've never heard anything about your mom like that. And I'm telling you, my heart is just, I just love that. No wonder you are the way you are.
Yeah. Oh, so she was amazing.
It's just amazing to hear that. And but what I think you've embodied is the spirit of hospitality, hospitalidad. It's the spirit of hospitality. And from what you've done, you've created a network of people who know, love, and trust you. So on that note,
and I'm just a little connector in the middle.
And you're an amazing connector. And thank you for connecting me to so many wonderful people in my life. Thank you for joining us today. And we'll sign off right now. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye.